Henry, I met Sadie at a wedding. I know they say you have to be careful when meeting single women at weddings because the atmosphere makes them think about getting married, but that was fine with me because that's what I wanted to find for that purpose. Sadie was the friend of the bride, and I was the friend of the groom. None of us were part of the wedding procession, but that only meant that we had no responsibilities during the evening. We first met when I asked her to dance. I did it because she was very beautiful, came alone, and just sat at the table watching what was going on and sipping her drink. She agreed, and I don't think either of us expected it to be anything more than just a dance. But when I walked her back to the table after 2 dances in a row, she asked me to sit and talk to her. I was also without a date, so I was in no hurry, so I sat with her. We didn't leave each other all evening. We danced a few more times, and when we weren't dancing, we sat at the table and chatted. Sadie even received several offers to dance from other guys, but she refused them all, preferring, as she said, to sit and chat with me. We exchanged numbers and talked until she had to leave. I walked her to the car and decided to leave on my own with her gone. I had no reason to stay. We said goodbye next to her car. The goodbye hug turned into a very sweet goodbye kiss and a promise to continue. 6 months later, Sadie and I were engaged, and 7 months later, we were the stars of our own wedding. We were very in love and happy together, and talked about having 3 or 4 children when the time came. We started working on this after we had been married for about 2 years. Sadie was now 5 months pregnant. Sadie and I both had very strong sex drives, and we did it often, refreshing every room in the house. But over the past couple of months, it had gotten even more intense, even as her belly was getting bigger. Sadie couldn't get enough. We did this at least a couple of times before bed. She would often wake me up at night to do it again, and finally in the morning before I left for work. I was exhausted and took naps every day at lunch to get some sleep. But I was happy and felt good. Perhaps it was because I was tired or too happy that I was distracted and did not notice any signs. In any case, I didn't expect what happened next. It was Wednesday, and I was practically falling asleep at my desk. Sadie wore me out over the weekend and Monday and Tuesday, and I was completely useless at work. I needed sleep, and my boss, Carla, totally agreed. We worked together for several years, and we were good friends, so I didn't think anything bad by telling her why I was so tired, and she, in turn, didn't think it was shameful to say that she was going through the same thing as now Sadie was worried, so she understood me. I left a couple of hours early. I entered the house through the garage, noticing our friend Jeff's car in front of the house, but it wasn't that unusual. He was a friend to both of us and worked nights at a nearby UPS distribution center, and Sadie told me he came over a couple times a week before work just to hang out. That's why I didn't think about anything when entering the house. I heard it first before I saw it, but that didn't stop me. I looked around the corner into our bedroom and saw Jeff having sex with Sadie. I took out my phone with a camera, as often happens in such situations. Usually husbands are content with a couple of pictures and then leave, but I seem to have grown attached to this place. This was clearly consensual. There was no doubt that she was an active participant and enjoyed it. She moaned as their bodies collided, indicating that Sadie was enjoying herself. They didn't even use a condom. I think they decided she couldn't get any more pregnant. I should have left at this point, but I was so stunned by what was happening that I could not move. If I had left, I would not have heard and would not have recorded for posterity the conversation that followed. Sadie, God, thank you for such incredible sex. Jeff, is Henry still struggling? Sadie, he still gives me pleasure, but it doesn't bring me pleasure like it used to. Jeff, well, it's always a pleasure to help you. Shall we take a shower? Sadie, we need to clean up. I need to air out the room and change the sheets before Henry gets home. The closing of the bathroom door hit me like a coffin. It felt like the death of my marriage. Finally, my feelings returned, and it was time to take action. One of the benefits of working for my company is a program that gives you access to various legal services at a discount and allows you to pay for them in installments. I went to my home office and picked up my phone. SETI. I felt good after the shower. I wouldn't let Jeff shower with me. It was an act of intimacy that I reserved only for my husband. I washed myself thoroughly so that Henry wouldn't suspect anything when he got home. Even with these meetings with Jeff, I was still going crazy with desire after a few hours and couldn't risk Henry getting suspicious. He noticed a couple of times that I had become a little freer, but I attributed this to changes in the female body during pregnancy, and he accepted it. I couldn't tell him that the reason was because another big boy had me. I finished washing, and then Jeff got in the shower. I took the sheets off the bed and put on clean ones, then opened the windows to get the smell out. She collected the dirty sheets and took them to the laundry room. Funny, I thought. I was sure that the door to the office was completely closed, but now it is slightly open. I put the sheets straight into the washing machine and turned it on, then went to look at the door. Henry wanted the office door to always be closed when he was not at home. He dealt with matters involving confidentiality and preferred to keep this room locked. That's why it seemed strange, and an uneasy feeling began to rise in my stomach as I approached the office and heard Henry's voice from inside. I heard the water turn off and realized Jeff had gotten out of the shower. I quietly approached the office, thinking that if I could hear what he was saying, I might understand how much he had seen. I hoped Henry went straight to the office when he got home and didn't look into the bedroom. Now the words were clearly audible. This document must be sent immediately. We need to show that we have taken immediate action. You can do it as soon as it is ready. There is no need to delay. One has nothing to do with the other. I would like to have it done tomorrow if possible, but I understand that this is a short time. Thank you. I appreciate your promptness. Goodbye. I cautiously peeked around the corner, and he was working intently at the computer. I tried to act like everything was fine. Hey, honey, you're back early. Yes. He just kept working. I tried again. Do you want something to eat? No. I heard footsteps in the hallway leading to the office, and it must have been Jeff. At first, I hoped he would just leave, but then I realized that Henry had probably seen his car, and it would be suspicious if Jeff just walked away without saying anything, so I let him walk to the office door. Hey, Henry, buddy. Welcome home. I have to go, but I didn't want to leave without saying hello. Henry just looked at him for a moment and then went back to work. Jeff's face became concerned, but he said nothing more and left through the front door. Honey, is everything okay? You look upset. I didn't want to ask, afraid of the answer, but his behavior was so unlike the warm and friendly man. I knew that I thought it would be more suspicious if I didn't mention it. Just a lot to do at work. In fact, I'll have to spend the evening here taking care of business, so you'll have to make do without me today. I'm really sorry to hear that. I thought we agreed that evenings were our time. That's usually true, but it's very important. Thank you for your understanding. This was also unusual. Usually, he would at least pretend to ask me if I would mind something like this, but this time he just told me how it would be. What could this mean? Okay, honey. Well, I'll go take a nap and make you something to eat when I get up. I waited for an answer, but there was no answer. He just went back to working on the computer. I went to the bedroom, took off my clothes, and went to bed. I had always slept naked, and being 5 months pregnant wasn't going to change that. Quite the contrary, I began to think even less about wearing something on myself. I thought about how Henry was acting. Has he seen Jeff and me? If so, he would probably have already said something to one or both of us, right? He wouldn't just go into the office to work, so I had some hope that he, in fact, just went straight into the office without looking into the bedroom. Only time will tell, I think. Finally, I fell into a restless sleep. Henry. What audacity these two have. Spend the day exhausting each other with sex, and 20 minutes later talk to me as if nothing happened. Well, it doesn't matter. I've just started to deal with the situation with Sadie, and will soon figure out what to do with my dear ex-friend Jeff. I spent the whole evening in the office. Reluctantly, I let Sadie bring me dinner, but I stayed where I was, only leaving when I was sure she was asleep. I didn't want to show that I knew, so I slid into bed next to Sadie instead of sleeping in our guest room. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't stop replaying everything in my head. How long did this last? We've known Jeff for several years. Maybe this has been going on all this time. If so, why did she marry me? I make a lot more money than Jeff, so maybe she wanted to be provided for while she got the sex she really wanted on the side. I already doubted whether the child she was carrying was mine and took steps to protect myself in this regard. I fell asleep with these and many other questions swirling around my head. SETI. I woke up alone in bed, hearing Henry taking a shower. I looked at my watch. It was time for him to leave for work. Well, he'll have to stay a little longer. I opened the blanket and exposed my body so that he would see me in all my glory when he came out. I heard the water turn off and Henry began to move around the room, doing all the things men do after a shower. Lately, I have been tormented by desire so often. The door opened, and I gave him the most seductive look I could. I ran my wet fingers over my lips. Want to try it, honey? Sorry, not this morning. I have an important production meeting. I really have to go. When he left the bedroom with barely a glance in my direction, I was so stunned that you could have knocked me off my feet with a feather. I pulled myself together as quickly as my round figure would allow and tried to catch up with him, but he was already out the door. What the hell is going on? If he saw something yesterday, he would say something, but he definitely acts like he did. But I couldn't say anything in case he really didn't see anything. Also, damn it, I was terribly nervous because Henry hadn't been with me last night or this morning, and I couldn't take any more risks with Jeff, just in case. You'll have to deal with it yourself. Resigned to this, I took my favorite sex toy from the drawer. Later, after I had pleasured myself, I was folding laundry when I heard a knock on the door. I opened it and saw what I initially thought was some kind of religious man walking from house to house until he spoke. Sadie Weston. Yes, I'm Sadie Weston. He handed me a large envelope. I'm very sorry, ma'am, but you are being served with documents. What the hell, I thought. I tore open the envelope and saw the words, petition for divorce. Like this. Without saying a word, he simply files for divorce. This won't happen. I grabbed my keys and went to the garage. Henry. I was sitting in my office reviewing budget estimates when I heard a noise in the hallway. I hoped it wasn't what I was thinking, but I didn't think I'd be so lucky. When I heard someone yell, "What, are you going to knock down a pregnant woman now? Get out of my way," I just waited for the inevitable. A few moments later, my office door opened and Sadie rushed in, followed by my assistant Amy. Sorry, Mr. Weston. Nothing, Amy. That's all. Amy stepped back and closed my office door. Sadie and I just stared at each other until she finally made a move and threw the divorce papers on the table. What the hell is this? She shouted. I would have thought it self-explanatory, Sadie. Didn't you read them? I read just enough to understand that you're thinking about divorcing your pregnant wife, and it's not going to happen, Mr. What's this all about? I don't know, Sadie. Is there anything that would make me want a divorce? I looked her straight in the eyes as I said this, and her confidence seemed to weaken. No, I can't remember. Can't remember anything? Nothing at all? She suddenly found it difficult to look me in the eyes. No, honey, I can't remember anything. I love you, you love me, and we're expecting a baby. That's all. Since you can't remember anything, maybe someone else can give you a hint, like Jeff, I said, without taking my eyes off her. Oh God, you saw everything. What did I see, Sadie? You saw Jeff and I having sex yesterday, didn't you? Honey, I'm so sorry. It's not what you think. Really? Tell me, Sadie, what do I think? Well, I'm afraid that you think I have feelings for him, but I don't, honey. I only love you. You have a weird fucking way of showing it, Sadie. And not only do I catch you having sex with my best friend, but also in our bed. And just when I think things can't get any worse, I can hear you talking about how great it is that he's big, because I'm not giving you pleasure anymore. Oh God, no, honey, it's not. Shut up, Sadie. I was there and saw and heard everything. These are not rumors. This is not someone telling me what they saw or heard. I was there. You can't lie your way out of this. My lawyer's business card has his number. I suggest you find yourself a lawyer so that we can complete this quickly. Honey, please let me explain. Please. Sadie, I have a job. If I get fired, I won't be able to pay you child support or alimony. Henry, please. I love only you. It's just... Damn it, Sadie. I don't want to hear it now. Get out of here before I call security to get you out. Tears streamed down her face as she slowly turned around and walked out of my office. I held it in until she left, and then I finally burst into tears myself. I think men shouldn't cry, but at that moment I didn't care. I tried to stop when Amy came in to check on me, but before I knew it, I was crying on her shoulder. It took a few minutes before I collected myself again, and when I finally calmed down, Amy pulled one of the other chairs over to me and sat next to me, holding my hand. What's going on, boss? You've always loved each other so much. Surely this can be fixed. What happened? I told the whole dirty story, including the humiliating words at the end. Amy and I have been working together for 3 years now, and I trust her with everything, so I saw no reason to change now. She listened to every word. Did she explain why she did it? I don't want to hear it. Damn it, Amy, there's nothing to justify it, so who cares? I just thought that maybe if you knew why, it would help you get through it. Sometimes it's the why that bothers us the most. I didn't know what to answer. Even if there was some really good reason, it wouldn't change what happened. I thanked Amy for her concern and asked her to give me some time alone. Sadie, my worst nightmare has come true. I tried to be so careful. I know it's cliché, but it was just sex. I didn't have feelings for Jeff, but pregnancy changed my body. My hormones were going crazy, and I felt desire all the time, and my body changed to prepare for the birth, so I no longer felt Henry the same way I used to. It's a fairly good size, and was always more than enough until I got pregnant. The irony is that it was Henry who told me about Jeff's size. It was a couple of years ago when Henry saw him in the locker room at the gym. Back then it was just casual conversation, like me mentioning that some girl had big breasts after seeing her naked. The first time with Jeff was not planned. Henry and I had known Jeff for a while now, and he did stop by a couple times a week before his shift just to chat, and nothing ever happened until 2 months ago. I felt comfortable with Jeff and mentioned that being pregnant had made me constantly horny and that I was wearing Henry out. It was just innocent flirting, or so I thought, when he joked that he was ready to pick up what was missing. He was surprised that Henry had told me about it, and I said it was just in passing and added that I thought Henry was exaggerating. Jeff's expression changed a little, and he said that Henry wasn't exaggerating and offered to prove it. I started to get a little turned on by the conversation, and for reasons I can't explain, I said something like, "Come on, get me." He did, and it was as impressive as Henry said it would be, and he wasn't even in full combat readiness. I knew at this point I was going to let Jeff take me if he wanted. I had to feel what it was like to be so big. Jeff had sex with me 4 times that day. It was the best purely physical sex of my life, although it lacked the love and tenderness that I felt with Henry. When it was all over, I felt guilty, but it was drowned out by a feeling of complete satisfaction. But then I realized that Henry would soon return home. I told Jeff to leave and that this would never happen again. I changed the bedding and aired the room, hoping nothing would give me away. That night Henry and I made love, and I was acutely aware of the difference between what Henry and I did and what I did with Jeff. I would have gone crazy risking Henry's love for something even as amazing as sex with Jeff, and I decided again that it would only be this one time, and that would be it. But I couldn't get it out of my head, and I kept thinking about what amazing pleasures it was. Henry used to give me this kind of emotion before I was pregnant, and my doctor said it was not uncommon for this to change during pregnancy, and that things should be back to near normal within a few weeks of giving birth. Jeff didn't come for a week, and when he returned, things were awkward. Finally, we decided that we needed to talk about it. I told him that was great, but I'm a married woman and shouldn't do that. He said he was ashamed of what he did to Henry, but he couldn't regret the act itself. He really enjoyed it and always found me beautiful and sexy and was jealous that Henry was getting me. He made me feel so good in his eyes, and before I knew it, we were back at it. When we finished, we relaxed on the bed, but I still felt anxious and guilty. I couldn't believe I did it again. Finally, Jeff turned to me. Sadie, I'm not going to take you away from Henry. I know you love him and not me, but we both enjoy doing this. We both have needs and desires, and if we're careful, we can keep it a secret. I don't want to hurt Henry any more than you do. Eventually, you'll give birth and things should go back to normal, but for now, there's nothing wrong with taking care of each other for a while. Everything sounded so logical. Of course, what Henry doesn't know won't hurt him. I was still so horny that I still wanted Henry every night and every morning, and if Jeff and I limited ourselves to once or twice a week, we could manage. Looking back, I was probably able to convince myself so easily because the sex was so good and I wanted to continue. So for the last 2 months, I've been having sex with Jeff twice a week. Not that I wanted it. I didn't love Jeff and didn't have any special feelings for him. I was going to stop as soon as the baby was born, and I knew it was only temporary, so I justified myself that Henry would never know. But he found out, and I didn't have a plan to deal with it. Of course, he knew that I loved only him, but how could he believe it after what he saw? It really could have cost me my marriage, and I was scared to death. I didn't want to be a single mother, and I didn't want to be without Henry. I just had to make him understand and somehow find a way to forgive me. I knew I had to tell Jeff that Henry saw us, and that this was the end, so I called him. Jeff, Henry saw us the other day. I can't see you anymore. Oh God, are you okay? Did he hurt you? No, Jeff, Henry would never lay a hand on me, but he filed for divorce. I have to try to save my marriage, so we can't date anymore. Yesterday was the last time, and I thought you should know in case, well, just in case. Sadie, maybe this is, well, a good thing. What the hell do you mean, Jeff? There's nothing good about this. Sadie, I'm sorry, but I fell in love with you. I wish it didn't happen, but it did. I want us to be together. No, Jeff, I don't love you. Even if I can't save my marriage, I won't be with you. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. As soon as I finished talking with Jeff, there was a knock on the door. I was surprised to see Henry's assistant standing in the doorway. What do you want, Amy? Well, I was going to try to help you, but it doesn't matter now. She started to turn around, and I tried to stop her. Oh, Amy, I'm sorry. I thought Henry sent you to pick up some things. No, and anyway, he doesn't even know I'm here. I'm on my lunch break, so I don't have much time. We went inside and sat in the living room. I offered her a drink, and she agreed to water. Look, Sadie, Henry told me everything he knows. I also know how much you love each other, so I'm sure you have an explanation for this. Maybe not a good one, and probably not one that Henry will easily accept. But still an explanation. I need you to tell me everything and not hide anything. Then I will see how I can help to save your marriage. Any help from you, Amy, would be great. I know how much he trusts you, certainly more than he trusts me right now. I told her everything that happened and why, including the conversation with Jeff that I had just finished before she arrived. You know, Sadie, as a woman I can at least understand how you felt. I know how crazy my hormones can be at certain times and how horny I start to feel, and that's probably nothing compared to what's going on. During pregnancy, it's not an excuse for what you did, but I don't know if Henry will understand it or even believe it. I'll try to help as much as I can because I really wouldn't want to see you break up, but chances are, not great. You should have seen him after you left today. God, Amy, I would give anything to go back and not do this, but I can't. Please help me save my marriage. Henry, I tried to do a little work during the day, but I didn't get much done. I went into my boss's office and apologized for my inattention and low productivity. Her words of encouragement and reassurance that she understood and was ready to support me were very important. When I arrived home, dinner was almost ready. Sadie looked gorgeous as usual, and it made me smile, even if I was a little sad. I loved her so much, but she struck me such a blow. Her long black hair was loose, as I like, and she even bothered to dress in something other than one of those robes she had started wearing lately. "Welcome home, honey. Dinner's almost ready. I don't want to pressure you, but maybe we can talk later." "I'll think about it, Sadie." I went to the bedroom and changed into casual clothes. I was so sure about the divorce, but every time I saw her, it awakened my love for her, and I began to hesitate. But then I remembered what I saw and heard, and I got angry again. God, how I hated all of this. Why did she have to do this to us? "Dinner is ready," she called from the kitchen. We ate mostly in awkward silence. I felt like she wanted to say something, and she probably felt like I didn't want to hear it right now. I complimented her on the food. She really is a great cook. She cleaned the kitchen while I grabbed a drink and went out onto the terrace. A few minutes later, I heard her footsteps walking towards the door. "Can I join you?" "Certainly." She took a chair and pulled it next to mine. Normally, we would hold hands, and I could sense that she wanted that. This would be a signal to her that we may be on the path to reconciliation. But I made no effort to take her hand, but rather moved it onto my lap away from her. We sat in silence for about 20 minutes until she broke it, although she did not look at me directly, but looked at several clouds in the sky. "Baby, I'm so sorry for what I did. I wish I could explain it to you. It would be a reason, but not an excuse. I know you'll probably leave me, even though we love you so much. Each other, but I want you to at least understand, even if you don't agree." "What's the point, Sadie? It's all already done, and you did it, for whatever reason. How can we ever get back to where we were? You were my wife, and I trusted you implicitly. You could tell me that the sky is red, and I would force anyone who disagreed with it to prove otherwise, because I would always believe you. Now I find myself doubting everything, and I hate living like this. I was looking forward to the birth of our child, and now I wonder if this is really my child." She turned to me with an expression on her face that I don't think I've ever seen before. "Henry Weston, I'll only say this once. You can be as angry at me as you want for what I've done. I deserve it. But this baby I'm carrying is your baby, and don't you ever dare doubt it or try to deny it. I won't allow it." I looked at her as calmly as possible. "I think we'll know for sure when the DNA result comes back. But surely you can understand why I have doubts now." Her expression softened. "Yes, Henry, I understand. But you will see that this is our child. Please, honey, let me explain what happened and let me try to make things right. I want to spend the rest of our lives together as a family. Please." I sat in silence for several minutes while Sadie continued to look at me expectantly. "Okay, Sadie, I'll listen to what you have to say, if only so you can stop asking me to let you explain yourself." And Sadie started explaining about the hormones and the changes her body was going through, how she was so horny because of the hormonal changes that she was out of her mind, and how the changes in my body were affecting my ability to please her, and how she accidentally ended up in bed with Jeff. And of course, all of this together led to her continuing her affair, thinking that she could avoid me finding out about it. And even that wasn't enough, honey. You know I killed you with my needs too. I never turned you down and never took time away from being with him. I know it doesn't mean much, but it's important that you know that when I was with Jeff, it was just a temporary satisfaction of a need. It's you I love, honey. On a logical level, it all made some sense. Yes, it didn't say anything about the devotion we were supposed to show to each other and the loyalty we were supposed to maintain, but strictly speaking, it was a logical explanation. The truth is that I really loved her and didn't want to be a divorced father. With the money I would have to pay Sadie, I could handle it, but being a part-time father to my child was definitely not what I wanted. You know, Sadie, I understand what you're saying, but you still did what you did without talking to me. If I wasn't enough for you, you could have said something so we could try to fix it together. And you have more than 3 months of pregnancy ahead of you. I'm afraid that you will continue to do this with someone else, if not with Jeff, since you need it so much. And we talked about having 3 or 4 children. And now I'm scared to even think about getting you pregnant again if we stay together. Everything we talked about and planned changed forever because you couldn't keep your legs together, and it makes me angry. How can I cope with these things, Sadie? You're right, honey. I made a decision that affected us without consulting you, and I'm very sorry for that. But please don't punish all 3 of us for the rest of our lives because of a mistake I made. To ours, the baby needs his daddy, and I need you. And despite what you may think right now, you need me too. There's no doubt about how much I love you, Sadie. But how do I get over the trust issues you've created? Not only am I hurt by what you did, I'm also angry at you. I don't know, honey. I wish I had an answer for you. I know I made a mistake, and I have to find a way to fix it, and I'm trying, I promise you. It was already dark, and the events of the last few days had exhausted me greatly. I stood up and took Sadie's hand. Come on, Sadie, let's go to sleep. She followed me silently. Sadie, we didn't make love last night, but we slept in the same bed, and I was grateful for that. I didn't expect this. Often when something like this happens, couples end up sleeping in different rooms or even living in different places, and I think this just drives them further apart. As usual, we ended up pressed against each other. Tonight his back was to my stomach and my arm was wrapped around him. I woke up when he got out of bed to go to work. I wanted him to make love to me, but I didn't want to pressure him by offering him my naked body, so I just adopted the "I'm available if you want" attitude, but he walked past me and went into the office. I allowed myself to burst into tears, knowing it wouldn't do any good, but it made it easier for me to release the tension. After that, I decided to get rid of other stress and set to work with enthusiasm. Henry, Mr. Weston, Jeff Cruz has come to see you. I stared at the intercom in bewilderment. Are you kidding me or what? Ami, call security and have them come up, but wait outside. When they arrive, send Mr. Cruz to me. A couple of minutes passed before my office door opened and Jeff walked inside, closing the door behind him. You're really insolent for coming here. You have 1 minute, and if I ever see you again, one of us won't survive. Get started. Henry, I wanted to apologize for what I did. I've always been infatuated with Sadie and took advantage of her weak moments. She loves you, not me like I would have liked. Please give her another chance. I just looked at him without reacting to his words. His attraction to Sadie was no surprise to me. He repeatedly commented on her beauty and said how lucky I was. Looks like friend loyalty is dead. Anyway, I've requested a transfer to another distribution center on the East Coast, and I'm leaving this weekend. I'm sorry for betraying your trust and friendship, Henry, and I hope you and Sadie can work things out. You really do. Good together. Don't let me ruin it. He paused for a moment, perhaps waiting for my reaction, and then left when he received no response. Amy later told me that security calmly but firmly escorted him out of the building. I immediately wondered if Sadie had sent him or if he had come on his own, and that just showed me that trust would be a major issue here. I believed I could if given enough time. After all, we weren't both virgins when we met. But the constant daily questioning of what was true and what was not would slowly wear me down, I was sure of that. Of course, the wild factor in this was our beautiful baby girl growing in Sadie's belly. This poor kid is not to blame for the actions of all the idiot adults in his life. This child would be punished simply for being born into this chaos, and that was not fair. But what if it really isn't my child? Sadie was adamant that this was my baby, and I wanted to believe that she was honest about how it all started just a couple of months ago. Can I just walk away? Of course, many men took in children who were not theirs and raised them as their own. I would have no problem dating and accepting a woman who already has children. But these children were not usually the result of this man's betrayal. But the child is still no less innocent. Damn it, this is all to hell, said he. I had a plan to try to regain Henry's trust. Okay, maybe it won't help much in terms of trust, but at least it will give him confidence that nothing will happen in the remaining months before the baby is born. To do this, I'll need a little inside help from Henry's boss, Carla. Luckily, I had already met and talked to her several times. I assumed Henry had already hinted to her what I had done, so my only fear was that she might not want to help the liar. But I had to try. Henry. I was reviewing last quarter's budget reports when the speaker buzzed. Mr. Weston, a package has been delivered to you. Okay, Ami, bring it. I wasn't expecting anything as far as I knew, but I was getting deliveries periodically, so I didn't pay much attention to it. The door opened, and a large man entered the room carrying a large chair. I have your new chair here. There must be some mistake. I didn't order anything, and I don't even have room for it. Yeah, they told us to move that little chair out of there. It'll be a little tight, but it will fit. He handed me the order, which was approved by Carla. I couldn't imagine that she would do something like that without consulting me. Wait, guys. Before we do anything, I have to figure this out. And then I heard a very familiar voice behind the workers. Oh, great, my chair is here. Excuse me, please. Sadie came through the door and placed her bag on my desk. She began directing the movers on what to do. Sadie, what's going on here? I'll explain in a minute, honey, okay? While Sadie was in charge of rearranging the furniture, I saw Carla peering through the door. Oh, great, just in time. Carla, what the hell does this all mean? Why did they send me a chair? They didn't send you a chair. They sent it to Sadie. Then why is it being placed in my office? Sadie intervened. Honey, I'll explain in a minute. I just sat and watched as the women took control. Even Ami helped in this little madness and seemed to have a slight grin on her face when everything finally fell into place. Finally, everything was arranged. The documents were signed. Sadie took her bag from the table and settled into her new seat while I just watched and gawked. She took her laptop out of her bag and finally seemed to realize that I was looking at her. I'm sorry, my love. I owe you an explanation. Honey, I know you don't trust me, and I don't blame you for that. And you told me you were worried about the fact that I still have 3 months of pregnancy ahead of me. And what can I do? I realized that the only way to calm you down is to always be with you. You mean you're going to sit here all day? Yes, every day too. I'll come to work with you in the morning and leave with you in the evening. If you need to meet a client here, I'll disappear. Carla says I can chat with her. I shook my head in disbelief as she enthusiastically outlined her plan, and she seemed to sense my doubts. Henry, I know this isn't ideal. I know this won't solve our trust issues in the long run. I was just trying to find a way to reassure you for now, so you know nothing is happening in the coming months. When the baby is born, well, I hope you feel like nothing is happening while I'm home with him or her. If not, we'll figure out something else. I'm just trying to show you how much I love you and what I'm into, ready to save us. She carefully got up from her chair and approached me. She sat on my lap, and I was surprised at myself that I let her do that. It's been so long since we touched each other like this. I felt her perfume, the warmth and softness of her body. Honey, I know I ruined everything. They say that men sometimes think with the wrong head. I won't repeat that mistake again, I promise you. Yes, I'm still terribly horny and I really want you, but I know that you're not yet ready and I'm handling it like I should have before. And when you're ready, baby, just say the word and I'll be yours. She rested her forehead on mine, pressing herself close to me. Even a few days ago, I would have moved my hand up her thigh and under her skirt to feel her, but now I restrained myself. Okay, Sadie, let's try this and see if it works. You're certainly right that I'll know nothing is happening while you're sitting here. But at some point, I'll need to trust you again, and I really hope we can get there. She kissed me on the cheek. That's all I can ask, honey, for you to try. Said he. Okay, I've taken the first step. Of course, it wasn't perfect, but it was a step in the right direction. I couldn't think of anything else that could reassure him that I wasn't going to do something like that in the coming months. I didn't intend to repeat what happened to Jeff, but Henry didn't know that and didn't believe me. At first, I thought that I could install some kind of CCTV system in the house so that he could monitor me all day, but this would require him to constantly check, and there would still be doubts that every place in the house was covered with cameras. No, the only way was to be with him 24/7 or as close to it as possible, and since he had to go to work, I decided that I would go with him. I called Carla and explained what I wanted to do and why. I expected that I would have to convince her, but she immediately supported the idea. She became very attached to Henry, she said, and wanted our marriage to survive. So I bought the chair, and she gave her guys permission to help me move it. I packed a bag with things that would keep me occupied and prepared to spend my days in this chair. I suddenly felt happy that I would spend all my time with Henry. God, how I loved him and couldn't believe I did what I did. Henry, we must admit that this was a non-standard approach. This went on for about a month, and I started to enjoy having Sadie around. It took a few days, but we started communicating within a day. Sometimes it was simple conversations, and sometimes it was about the elephant in the room. I brought her to tears several times, not on purpose, but by reminding her of the pain she caused. And I myself was not free from tears. In the evenings and on weekends, everything was about the same. She started preparing dinner as soon as we got home. I tried to help as much as I could, even if it meant just setting the table. We tried to re-establish our intimacy and tried to be around each other as often as possible. The divorce process was put on hold because no decision had been made until paternity had been established. On that first day, I notified the court that I was challenging the paternity of the child pending a DNA test. Since by law any child born into a marriage is presumed to be a child of that marriage unless notice to the contrary is given, I had to do this to protect myself in case the child was not mine. I could still support them willingly if I wanted to, but I wouldn't have to. This happened on Tuesday. We had system issues that took our network down for a couple of hours, which set me back from working on reports that were supposed to be finished that day. By the time it fixed everything, it was clear that I would have to stay late. Sadie just smiled and told me to do what I needed to do, and she would be there. It was a little after 6 in the evening when the network went down again. I called the IT guy on duty, but had to wait for him to come and get everything set up again. For some reason, all my pent-up frustrations and disappointments related to the Sadie situation came flooding back to me, and I got angry, slamming my hand on the table. Damn it, why doesn't anything in my life work right anymore? I shouted into the void. Is it really so much that I ask so that at least something doesn't let me down? I threw the folder of papers across the room, and they scattered across the floor until silence filled the room again. I stood and looked out the window, trying to pull myself together. I felt Sadie's hands touch my back. She spoke softly. You're talking about me too, right? I turned to her. There was no point in lying. Yes, Sadie, I say. I'm so damn mad at you. I'm trying so hard to forget everything and love you like I used to, but it's so hard. I feel helpless and worthless one minute and just angry the next. I'm sorry, honey. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry. No, I shouted now. I can't forgive you until I get what's mine back. Realizing what I meant, she began to say, I already said. No, Sadie, you can't give it to me. You already gave it away. I have to take it back. I had always been quite strong, but with the adrenaline that was now coursing through me, I was almost unstoppable. I grabbed her blouse and tore it open, scattering small pink buttons all over the room. I grabbed the bottom edge of her bra and lifted it up, exposing her breasts. She just stood there in shock. She wore a calf-length skirt with an elastic waistband to fit over her pregnant belly. I pulled her to the floor and tore her thin granny panties, literally tore them right off her. Henry I. Shut up, Sadie. Don't say another word. Are you okay, sweetheart? I hope I didn't hurt you. Sadie turned to me, smiling from ear to ear. I'm fine, honey. You didn't hurt me at all. Quite the opposite. It was one of the best moments of my life because the man I love was claiming his woman again. She put her arms around my neck, and I felt her hands on my back. My palms rested on her round belly. It was the first time in weeks that we had truly kissed with such passion. I lay down next to her on the floor, and we turned to face each other. She was grinning from ear to ear, and I was clearly in a better mood, but I didn't want to give in to it too much. Sadie, you know this doesn't solve everything. This is what I needed to do to try to move forward, and we also needed to rebuild our intimacy as a couple. But this is just the first step, and we have a long way to go. There's still a long way to go. I know, honey. I accept it for what it is, but I know that rebuilding trust is a long process and will be our biggest obstacle. Tomorrow I will sit in this chair again, but now I can remember tonight and hope for a repeat soon. You can be sure of that, although I think most of these things will happen at home. We have a lot of time to catch up, said he. From then on, things started to improve. We started making love again every night and every morning until I was very close to giving birth, when it just became too uncomfortable. We were even able to repeat it several times in Henry's office. The day after that first time, I was sitting quietly in my chair when there was a knock on the door. Carla, who always seemed to know everything that was going on in the building, looked inside. I have to ask, why did you ask the service to book your carpet cleaning today? You may not like the answer, boss, Henry replied with a smirk on his face. Carla simply smiled as if she knew everything in advance, and Henry and I burst out laughing, confident that she probably already knew the answer. Our daughter, Maurice Alice Weston, was born a few months later at 6:47 am. She was absolutely beautiful, a perfect little baby, and I was overjoyed when she was first handed to me. Shortly after, a nurse came and took a sample of her cheek so the hospital could comply with the restraining order that Henry had filed months earlier. It hurt that it was necessary, but I knew it was the result of my own actions, and I didn't blame Henry for needing reassurance. I knew what the result would be, so I wasn't worried, and the very next day we had the results confirming that Henry was Maurice's father. Henry canceled the divorce completely. Henry and I continued to work on our marriage and our relationship. We made love as regularly as possible with a newborn in the house. If everything continues as well as it is now, we still plan to have more children, and I promise to tell him if I start to feel like I did during this pregnancy. I know that Henry will find a way to take care of my needs, but I also know that there is no way in hell I would go down that path again. I've been on the verge of losing my soulmate once before, and nothing short of my child is worth risking that again. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think. Click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one.